Okay, hi, hello. Thank you all for coming. How to create products that people will love to use. In this session, you're not going to see any code, but you're going to see many practical examples on how you can improve your products as a developer. Okay, and before I begin, my name is Eleftheria. I'm coming from Greece. And you can find me on my social media. I use a lot Twitter, so if you have any question, feel free to drop a DM there. Or if you want more details about something, you can also find me on my email. And I'll try to help you with anything that I can. And let's see what we are going to talk about in this session. First, we are going to talk about UX and UI. UX, user experience, UI, user interface. We are going to see some things differently, and we are going to see those two terms from the perspective of the user and the perspective of the developer/engineer. So this is what we are going to do differently in this session than what you can get somewhere on the internet. Then we will talk about heuristics, what are they, how you can use them. We will see some practical examples, and then some very quick tips about do's and don'ts of UX, and the good and the bad of UI. Let's get started. Some examples of UX. It's not always easy to wash your hands, right? Some examples of elevators. And as I was searching for examples, I actually saw many bad designs about elevators. This one is another one. Who knew it? It was so hard, right? And then, no comment for this one. I really don't know what to say. But we also have some stuff that you may have seen, may have used. How hard should it be to reset your password or to set your password? Sometimes you just type, and nothing seems to work. Or we have some examples like this. Hopefully you haven't used something like this. Or something like this. Again, not sure where to begin. But again, we are here to talk about UX and UI, and I will start from the perspective of the user because I think it's a little bit easier to understand, and then we will move on to the perspective of the designer/developer/engineer. The first thing that we have here yeah, is the user interface. So user interface from the perspective of the user is what a user interacts with a product, what taps on or clicks on, and the whole experience is localized in a device. So we have a laptop, maybe a smart watch or something like that. But the user experience is how a user interacts with a product, how a user feels when they are using our product, and the whole experience is localized in the physical body. So for example, if I'm having my phone and I'm checking like this and my face is angry, that's my physical body, and you can probably understand that something is wrong with the app. But if I'm smiling and I'm happy, then you can probably understand that something is good with this app. Okay, and let's move on to the perspective of the designer or the developer. And here things are a bit more complicated, so that's why I have this analogy here with the iceberg. What we see, and it's the tip of the iceberg, is the UI design. But it's not only that. We cannot have only the UI if we don't have the UX. We see the tip of the iceberg because underneath that there is a whole mountain that holds the tip. There is the icy weather. There is the water. We have all those things. This is UX, and that's why we can have the UI. So, user interface from the perspective of the developer or the designer is what you can see and interact with. And user experience is what you can see alongside with what you can't see and what holds everything together. Okay, so again, from the user perspective, user experience has to do a lot with the ease and satisfaction. These are the two key words, and these are the things that you want to have in your product. You want things to be easy, and you want things to be satisfactory for your user. I have here a bunch of questions, and again, this is from the perspective of the user, but this is the things that you should be working, you as a developer should be working on those things. So it can be subjective. Does the user connect emotionally with the app by cracking a smile? Are the icons and illustrations understandably enough and pleasing to the eye? Is the user pleasantly surprised by the animation or a feedback mechanism? And on the other hand, it can also be objective. Can the user actually do what they want to do? Is the speed of things like okay? Is a swiping gesture or a tap effect more effective for your product? These are the things that you have to think as a developer. And now let's see an example. Let's say that we have a riding-sharing app, Uber, Bolt, whatever you're using. Would you prefer an app that doesn't let you save your favorite destinations, doesn't allow you to pay however you want, doesn't let you pick up your friends, doesn't show you in real time where you are, your driver is? Or would you prefer another riding-sharing app, very similar to the UI, very similar to what you see, but this time you can do things very quickly, you can save your favorite destinations, you can pay however you want, you can do all this bunch of things very quickly, very easily, and then you're happy to go to your destination. Okay, the answer here is simple. Yes, you would prefer the second app. But let's take a pause here and try to think of our own products. When we have a product that we develop, we design, we know that product by heart. We have worked very, very hard for it. So sometimes we think that everything is fine, everything is fabulous. But if we give the same product to our ex-partner or to our mother-in-law, will they have the same opinion with us? Will they think that everything is easy and satisfactory? You can do that test and then let me know. I'm just saying. Okay, I hope that by now you have understood why UX is so important. It is because at its core it's putting people before technology, because it focuses always on creating positive experiences, and in the end this is a win-win situation for everyone who is using that product or is developing that product, or for your company who, they want them. Okay, so what does a UX designer do? They do a bunch of things, but before I answer that question, I'm going to give you just a little bit more theory or a quick history lesson on how UX started. And we have this man here. This is Don Norman, and this is how UX started. He's the father of UX, the pioneer of UX. He started as an engineer, and then he did a master's in psychology. And what he did differently than everyone else is that he observed how people interact with technological products. He was the first one that really observed. And it's one thing to ask someone, what do you think about that product? And it's a whole other thing when to see them actually using that product and to observe them, how they actually use that product. He was the first one that did that, and then he started working at Apple, and we have Apple as it is today. He also wrote a lot of books. Side note, you can find many of them for free. And I suggest this one, The Design of Everyday Things, because it's really easy to understand and you don't need to have a technical background. He will give you a lot of examples, both technical things and non-technical things. Okay, let me go back to my original question, which was, what does a UX designer or researcher do? And as I quickly mentioned, they do a lot of things. Here I have this pyramid, and I will start from bottom to top. They are doing user research and analysis, content strategy, information architecture, interaction design, and visual design. They will focus more on the three bottom layers. And I do have a lot of details here, but I don't think that you want to hear those stuff. So very quickly, I will pass this just to To give you some details, for user research, we will have user interviews, user behavior studies, focus groups, interview surveys, and when we have all of those things, then we will move on to creating user personas, user stories, empathy maps. You don't have to do all of these things, but it's nice to do some of these things. And it's not only these things that I have here, there are even more things. Based on your product, based on your team, based on your capacity, based on your time, you can do the things that best suit your needs. So we have content strategy. Again, here a lot of things about copy, micro-copying, how we are going to word things, how we are going to present things. And then we have information architecture. Again, here a lot of things. Like card sorting, sitemaps, wireframe, user flows. And then, as I said, for interaction design and visual design, these are the things that the UI designers would mostly do, so I'm going to skip them for now. OK, we talked about UX. I hope that we covered it nicely. So let's go to UI, user interface. And UI, a lot of people think that UI is visual. So it's buttons, colors, maybe images, right? But I'm here to tell you that it's not only that. UI is a lot more than that. UI can be audible. We shout to a little machine, and it will give us results for everything that we are asking. This is a type of UI. And we also have this UI. I'm not saying it's pretty, but also it can be a textual form of UI, and something that all of us most likely have used. We have different kinds of UI, and what I want to say with these examples is that it's not only colors, it's not only images, it's not only font faces, it's a lot more than that. So let's go back to the question that we had about the UX designers. What does a UI designer do? And again, they are doing a lot of things, so I have here the same pyramid. But this time, we will focus on the interaction design, where we have things such as, yes, button colors, typography, but it's not only that, because a UI designer has to know things such as typography, color theory, iconography, illustrations, etc., etc. It's not easy. And then we have the visual design. Again, here, different variations of the same product. So it can be really hard for a developer that works at a startup, and maybe they don't have a dedicated person for that, or if you're working as a freelancer and you don't have a team, or I don't know, if you're creating your own product just because you have a cool idea. It's really hard to implement all those things. But if it goes step by step, and if we start by UX, then UI, then coding, then I believe that we can have a better product. Because what sometimes we do, I don't want to say always, but what sometimes we do as developers, we'll have an amazing idea, and we will start coding, right? But it's not so simple. We have to think about the UX, the UI, maybe then test our idea before even started coding, and then start coding, then test again. Maybe we will have to go back to our idea, change it a little bit. We have to do a lot of steps. It's definitely not an easy thing. And yeah, let's not forget something like that. All right, I hope that by now we have understood the differences between UX and UI, but also the similarities. So from the user's perspective, things can be a little bit easier. User interface is what they tap on, click on, and UX can be what they feel. But for us as developers, things can be more complicated, and one cannot exist without the other. We need UX in order to have UI. OK, so now let's talk about heuristics, and do stay with me, because in a bit we will start also seeing examples. Heuristics are taking decisions with information that we already have. And although there are a lot of heuristics and a lot of several inspection methods for heuristic evaluation, we will focus on the ones that are easier for us as developers, and I'm saying that because we don't have a technical background for making research, we don't have a technical background as UX designers or UI designers. So we will focus on the third column, the heuristic analysis. One quote that I really, really like from Don Norman says, good design is actually a lot harder to notice than poor design, in part because good design fits our needs so well that the design is invisible. And think about the example that I showed when we were starting with the elevators. Nowadays, we're using elevators, and the buttons are there. We will just click on a button, and we will go to our floor or whatever. But I had two examples with bad UI of elevators. For us now, it's so simple that we won't think about it. As Don Norman says, we will really not think about it. But when something is bad, we will notice it. And it's not only that we will notice it, but we will say to our friends, hey, this is bad, don't use it, try to use something else. And this is something that we definitely don't want for our products. Okay, now let's start with the 10 examples or the 10 rules. Sorry. Okay, these rules are coming from Jacob Nielsen and Don Norman. They were manifested in 1995, and we should really work on those things. Let's start with the first one. Okay, the first one, visibility of system status. People love to keep things under control. Imagine opening your phone, like as soon as the light comes on, you will see the time, the date, you will see notifications, you will see the signal, you will see the Wi-Fi signal, you will see a lot of things. Now, imagine someone taking back all of those things. How would you feel? Maybe a little bit naked? You want to see things. You want to see things that you know they will be there. This is the visibility of system status. You want the same thing for your product. Make sure that you show to your people the things that they want to see. You don't have to show them everything. They can tap or click on, do something else later. But first, make sure that you're giving them the things that they want to see. Second rule, okay, match between the system and the real world. People presume how a product will work based on the experience they have with other products. And again, make sure you're giving them that. You don't want to change everything. For example, we have some icons. We know what these icons are doing. If I have a bin, most likely you will know that I want to delete something. If I have a folder, most likely you know that this is where my files are. If I have a compass, the same. You pretty much know that this is a compass. You don't have, of course, to make everything based on an icon. But it's nice if something works and people know how it works to use the same thing. And the same goes with wording. If you want to have a delete functionality, make it as a delete or erase. Don't just create a new word for that. Simple things like that can work really, really well. The third one, user control and freedom. Every system should have a clearly marked emergency exit mechanism. Either we want it or not, our users will make mistakes. Yes, we are striving to create the perfect product and everything will work fine, and maybe everything is working fine in your product, but that doesn't mean that your user isn't going to make mistakes. And we will talk about mistakes in a bit again. Make sure that they can go back, they can undo something, they can exit something. Have these small options in your product, and again, your users will be thankful for those little things. Next one, consistency and standards, and this is one of my favorites. As I mentioned earlier, if something is working, don't try to change it because people, they think they know how your product is working, so don't change that. For example, the copy-paste functionality, it works everywhere the same. don't try to change those things. If you have the delete functionality in multiple places, don't have it once at delete and then erase and then something else. And again, the icon, use the same icon everywhere. And this is just one small thing, but there are more and more examples. And if you're working in a big project, it's more likely that you will do mistakes like that, especially if you're not working alone in that product, because every person, every developer may have a slightly different opinion, so sometimes they will have delete, sometimes they will have something else. But this is very confusing for the user. You as a developer and your team, they will know that, but your user will not know that. Okay, error prevention, quite crucial. There are two kinds of errors. One of them is the slips, and one of them is the mistakes. Pretty much, we already talked about the slips. Slips is when users are doing mistakes or are confusing things because they were in a hurry, maybe they didn't pay attention to something. So, okay, they will do the mistake, but as we said earlier, you will have the clear emergency button, so they will go back, so there is no issue. Okay, we covered that, but what about mistakes? Mistakes is when your users are doing mistakes because they don't understand something, because something is there, but they don't know how to do it, so they will try to do something else, or maybe they will do a circle until they find something. This mistake is on your side as a developer, and you should go a step back and talk with your team, talk with your managers, and say, hey, people don't understand that, let's try to fix it again. And it can be a whole project on its own, because it takes time to really find that mistake and then find a way to fix that mistake. Let's go to the sixth one, recognition rather than recall. We have two types of memory. We have recognition and recall. We always want recognition, because recognition is when you easily see something and you know what to do, is when you easily find something and you don't have to think. Whereas recall is when you have to go back to your memory and try to find something, for example, the year of something or a name of someone that you met 5 years ago. You really have to go back and think about these things. We certainly don't want that for your product. We want everything to be easy. This is recognition. And I have here an example from Coursera. It's a bit old, so maybe they have changed it, but the logic is the same. Give people some clues about how to find things so they don't have to think. There is also a book that's called Don't Make Me Think. You can find it for free. And yes, we always want recognition. Try to do that, and again, your users will be thankful. We have flexibility and efficiency of use. This is the 7th rule. Every user is unique, and each one have their own skill set. Hopefully, in your product, you will have users that they are the first-time users. They're using your product for the first time, but also you will have the power users. These are the users that they know your product, and they have used your product a lot. And you will have the people in the middle as well. These types of people, they all have different needs. The first-time user will want to maybe see some more information about how to do something. Probably they will do things slowly. But then you have the power users that they will do things fast, accurate. Maybe they want to extend your product. Maybe they want to connect it with other apps, other products. You will have to provide something for everyone. Not just for the first-time users, not just for the power users, but really for everyone. And you can think about that. Maybe if you have developer friends and you give them your product, probably they will do things faster. But if you give your product to your grandmother, your grandfather, maybe they will take some more time to do things. So really, really try to provide something for everyone. And then we have aesthetic and minimal design. Personally, this is one of my favorite rules. Go for the simple things. At least if you don't have a lot of experience, go for the simple things. Don't try to put everything out there. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Let's say that you're creating your own website or your portfolio or something like this. Don't go with all the colors that you know. Okay, stick to a couple of colors, it's enough. Maybe be like white and black, it's okay. Maybe if you want another color, that's okay. But 3 colors can be enough, okay? And if you stick, let's say, to blue, use always the same blue color. There are a lot of shadows, there are a lot of variations of blue. No, just go with the same color. If you're using nice typography and nice font family, yes, that's great. But right now, we don't want to see how creative you are. We just want to read the text that you are writing about yourself. Maybe you have an About Me section in your portfolio. Okay, that's great, that's cool, you should do that. But if you have a very fancy typography and I cannot read what you're writing about yourself, then that's, not good enough. Also, the font size. We're not so young anymore, at least I'm not so young anymore, okay? If you have a very small font size, like 10 pixels, probably I cannot read that. Okay, you can use 14, 16 pixels, that's okay. Okay, I hope we got this because I'm very passionate about this subject. Okay, let's move on to our next rule, the 9th one, help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. We already talked a little bit about errors and about mistakes. So whether we want it or not, our users will make mistakes, so help them find that mistakes, recognize that mistake, and then the next time they should probably not do the same thing again. And I have here an example, like the first one. The operation couldn't be completed. Even if you are a developer, probably you will not understand that one. We don't want this. And then we have the next one with the images that I think that you get the point in this one. Always try and strive for those things as well. And let's go to the 10th rule, help and documentation. We want to have the perfect product and we want everything to be in place. But as I said earlier, either we want to or not, people will do mistakes. Maybe people will be first-time users, so they will want some more documentation, and that's fine. When we say documentation and help, I don't mean that you should have like a big tutorial or something very fancy. Again, you can have something very small, maybe some tips here and there. Again, I think that Slack is doing a really good job at that. It's something small that everyone can see very quickly. It's to the point. The language is very easy and everyone can understand that. So hopefully you should have something similar to your product. And if you don't have, then I would suggest you to do so. These were our 10 rules. Okay, it takes some time to really understand them and making sure that we are covering these things in our product. But I'm quite confident that if we have those things in our products, things will be much easier and much more satisfactory for our people. Okay, we're not yet done, okay? Let's move on the next track, which is the do's and don'ts of UX. This one will be very quick, and I will show you some tips of things that you should do or you shouldn't do as a UX researcher. Okay, are we ready? Yes. The first one, don't assume you know what a user wants. No, that's why we have the users. And you, as a developer, you're not the user. Maybe you're using the product, but that doesn't mean that you are the user. You want real people for that. Next one. Don't follow the hippo at the room. And hippo stands for the highest paid person's opinion. Yes, your boss is paying you, but they don't pay you to hear what they want to hear. They pay you because you have your own opinions, and you should stand for them. Do make the time and effort for user research, quite crucial. Don't just create a list of methods to check off, it's not just a to-do list. Don't prototype or don't code too soon, even if you plan to test it. Always think before you code or prototype or whatever. Do focus on what people say, what people do rather than what they say. That's why we mentioned earlier that we should observe how people react with our products. We should really observe them. And then if you can do only one thing, do conduct user testing. Again, for me, this is something really important. And don't overlook existing insights from customer care representatives. If you have a support team, if you have like a Slack or a Discord channel that your people can go and maybe create issues or they complain about things, and maybe your role as a developer is not to work with those things, maybe you just create new features or maybe fixing bugs, do take the time to check those things, check the support, check the tickets. You will find things that you didn't even think of before. And I know that for sure because in my previous company, I also had the chance to work for a few weeks in the support system, and I saw things that for me, like they were very easy because I knew the system up and down. But it's not like that because your users will not know what you know. So take the time and listen to those things or check out those things. Do collaborate. You are not alone. And do find someone qualified to do your research or become one yourself, become more qualified yourself. And I hope that with this session, I help you towards this. Okay, let's go to our last part for this session, and then you're off to your lunch, okay? This also is going to be quick. We have the good and the bad of UI. I will show you 2 columns, and you can pick your column. One will be the good designer, and the other one will be the bad designer. Oh, before that, a quote again that I really like. A good designer is not the one who designs beautiful, usable, and impressive interfaces. The main difference that sets apart a good designer from a bad one is the mindset. So we will be talking about the mindset. The good one listens to everyone from decision makers, team members, and stakeholders, whereas the bad one judges and suggests solutions all the time. You can pick a side. The good one questions the status quo and digs deep to find out real problems and needs, whereas the bad one follows the rule, we've always done it that way, and I'm quite sure that you've heard that inside your team or your company, and tries to fix symptoms only. Again, pick your side. The good one takes time to ask about what is missing, is always uncertain about their understandings and designs, whereas the bad one follows their assumption and is always certain about their work. The good one has many solutions and ideas, tries always to find issues and flaws in their work, whereas the bad one has only one idea to invest their time and efforts to convince everyone that he's right, and always defends their work. The good one loves to working with others, revisits their thoughts, has something to learn from everyone, whereas the bad one loves to work alone, tries to confirm their thoughts, and thinks they know everything. The good one loves to be wrong and seeks feedback, whereas the bad one loves to be always right and seeks praise. The good one leads, whereas the bad one follows. That was it. If you have any questions, feel free to find me on my social media, email, whatever. Thank you very, very much. Yeah, bon appetit. And I will be around if you have any questions. You can also find me here. Thank you.